Welcome to the Road to Care podcast hosted by Somacare, where we will talk with key opinion leaders, physicians, administrators, manufacturers, venture capitalists, and legislators to get their insights on the state of healthcare today and where we see it evolving. Somacare's prior authorization platform is free to clinics, ensuring patients get on the right therapy at the right time. Together, we can simply make things right. All right, and we are live. And hey, everybody, welcome back to the Road to Care podcast hosted by Somacare. And I am ready to drop the gloves because Jeremy Roenick is our special guest today. JR is a celebrated NHL All-Star, Hall of Famer, Olympic athlete, and sports icon. As one of the greatest and grittiest American-born hockey players of all time and a sports commentator, JR showed unparalleled commitment to both physical and mental resiliency. He brings that commitment to his new calling, which is helping healthcare achieve peak performance. His company, MediChainX, leverages cutting-edge blockchain technology to reshape the way medical data is handled and protected, paving the way for better care, stronger trust, and a more connected future. So, JR, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, Kip. Great to be on with you, pal. This is awesome.
Well, it's been a long time, and I'm glad we reconnected. Now, selfishly, we do have to talk hockey a little bit, and just for our subscribers and all the listeners out there, JR actually crushed my hopes and dreams when I was a bantam, and he was a bantam. He was playing for a team called the New Jersey Rockets. I was playing for a team called the Indianapolis Bisons.
Yep.
And in the national championships, I think this was the semifinals, your team beat us 5-2, and you had a hat trick in that game. JR, do you remember those games at all?
I do, actually. It was two of my favorite years of playing hockey, my two Bantam years where we won back-to-back national championships. But I remember that team, the Indianapolis Bisons. I don't remember the game or the goals, but I do remember that whole experience of going through the national championships and through the tournament. And I know the first one I had separated my shoulder in the quarterfinal game. I had to play two games with a totally separated shoulder. And the final against the Chicago Young Americans went 6 overtimes until I had 2 goals and assists in that final game, which gave me my first real taste of being a champion. And I just loved it.
Yeah, shocking that you had that many goals. But so I do. By the way, it's okay that you don't remember. It's fine. I'm not hurt by it. But I remember watching the back of your jersey literally for 3 periods. It was just a pleasure, and I'll never forget those days. And by the way, so you won those 2 national championships. And just for the listeners out there, this doesn't happen very often today. It actually didn't happen very often in the 80s when JR, you were put into the NHL. I think Steve Yzerman went in right out of high school, out of juniors. You won 2 national championships and then to the NHL out of high school. What was that like?
It was crazy because it was my Bantam year was my second Bantam year was my freshman year. And literally, I bet you I weighed 140 pounds in my freshman year. And 2 years later, I turned pro and walked onto an NHL arena surface to play in the NHL. So it was a very, very fast track from Bantam to high school, right to the NHL, which I don't think many people have been able to do that route, but I was fortunate enough to get it done.
He did. And then after that, it's in the history books, right? You were 20 seasons, I think 5 teams. Here, a couple statistical questions for you. I'm sure you can rattle these off, but I might have a surprise for you, JR. So how many goals did you end up with in your career?
513 regular season. Yeah.
And your 500th was with San Jose. Do you remember that goal?
Yeah. It was the best dump in that I've ever had. It was a shot around the glass that hit partition, redirected towards the net. The goaltender had come out to try to corral the puck and got caught out of position. And then as he scurried back to the front, puck was going in the net. He kind of slapstick the puck a little bit and actually threw it into his own net. So since I was the last opposing team player to touch the puck, I got the goal. That's how my 500th goal went in.
Oh, congrats, man. The 513, that's a story.
But 501 was a beauty. It was a snapshot, lace, top shelf, far corner. It was a thing of beauty. So I made up for it the next goal.
You had a wicked shot, but my favorite of you is you would always go wheels around, left side, come in, that sweet left to right deke move. Goalies were just statues at that point.
We called it the bean pot. Come in, take a little move to the left, hammer on the brakes, and throw it into an empty net. So we see it a little bit more today, but you didn't see it too often back in the 80s and 90s.
No, saw it a lot from you. I think those kids today are obviously watching film with you. And that assist, you remember how many assists you ended up with?
I had 703 assists for 1,216 total points. I think it was like 1,530 games and over 1,500 minutes in penalties, which you got to be a little bit excited about also.
I'm excited, and that's where I was going. You actually took the penalty minutes because if I do some potato math, that's actually 731 or over, about 740 actual penalties, probably not including the 5-minute majors and the misconducts. But you've got a great story. There's always mentors and coaches throughout the career. I think we've all had them. You certainly had them. Where when you went to the NHL, like you said, you were buck 40, soaking wet, playing against these monsters. And Coach Mike Keenan, who was a badass, he was a tough coach,
Oof, was he
did
ever?
something with you to change your game to earn all those penalty minutes, by the way. Do you remember
Yeah,
that
well,
story?
I wasn't a tough player. I wasn't a physical player. I was just a finesse, skate as fast as I can and score as many goals. But going to Chicago at the time, Mike Keenan was, coming from Philly. He had that Broad Street bully mentality. He wanted to have a tough, physical, very mean hockey team, and that just wasn't my style. And in my first preseason game, I'm flying around, going past checks, swinging by other players, wouldn't finish my checks. And Keenan's like, nope, this is not going to fly with me. And he came down to the bench and he grabbed me by the neck and literally choked me while screaming into my face and said a lot of profanities, pretty much threatening my entire NHL existence on whether I was going to finish my check and start hitting somebody. So, I put on a pair of football pads, shoulder pads, and started, turn myself into a human torpedo to please my coach. And I found that I really enjoyed hitting people hard. I really enjoyed how it felt. I enjoyed getting hit. And I found I enjoyed it and fans enjoyed it. So it became part of my repertoire, which I don't know if there's many players that have kind of combined the finesse, goal scoring, playmaking, fighting, hitting, the total conglomerate that I had through 21 years.
No, no. I mean, you were the triple threat guy, and I would imagine just getting over that barrier of toughness to be able to go crush guys and not worry if they crushed you back, that it probably elongated your career, right?
I don't know whether it elongated my career. I was fortunate enough to play 21 years, so I was blessed with a durable body, took care of myself. And one good thing that saved me is I did things properly. I was taught how to do it properly. I did it while protecting myself. And also, you know, even though I would look like I was out of control, like I was a little reckless, I always seemed to have my body in the right place when I was getting hit. And I always made sure that I hit with the most powerful part of my body. So I wasn't susceptible to injury. So I think I did it in a very educated, smart way than just being a total, psycho.
Mental, as you would say. Thank you for the walk down memory lane, JR. So listen, the journey from NHL Hall of Famer to healthcare innovator, I certainly would have thought it would have been in dentistry or orthodontics. That's enough. But
Yeah.
talk to me about that.
Listen, if I was my own patient forever and I had a bunch of people just like me, I would be investing in the dental side of healthcare. It was kind of funny. I think being a professional athlete or being in the limelight or being around as many people as I have, or just in general, I hate the word celebrity, but being in the public eye, you get a lot of opportunities to do things in many different industries. I own a whiskey called Whiskey in the Wild. It's my own. I own a golf course. I'm part of EA Sports. I'm part of golf, building golf greens. And an opportunity came up about a little over a year ago, seeing what's happening in the world today in the industry, especially of tech and the different sectors of healthcare, just being a part of technology today. To do a blockchain technology. Blockchain is new to the game. It's been around for a few years, but nobody's really tested the accuracy or has really challenged how great blockchain can actually be for data storage, for the movement of data. We've seen a lot of things happen in the healthcare industry these days with bad actors, with companies getting hacked. They're holding up their businesses for ransom. United Healthcare, they have millions and millions and millions and millions of people that literally are handcuffed and you can't do anything as in terms of running a business or protecting these people. So it was an awesome idea and it's an awesome mentality because with the ever changing world of tech, and what it can do and its powers and the things that are making things faster and safer. These are the technologies that all companies are going to be moving to. Everybody says, well, technology scares everybody. And that is true. But there's no question in my mind that the healthcare world, the processing world, a lot of the world is going to be moving to blockchain to store their very important data. The cloud based system that everybody's on now has been compromised. We have seen that over and over and over again. The bad players in the world and these scammers can now get into that cloud base and pretty much hold an entire industry captive. And with a blockchain, that is pretty much impossible to do. And so I was like, this is a great place to be. Future technology. Our company, we are the top three best blockchain builders in the world. And we are looking to change people's lives in healthcare, change the security, change the way that healthcare does their business from day to day. Unfortunately, there are a lot of hospital systems and a lot of the medical world that are on archaic systems. And it seems like some of them are still on dial up. I mean, that's how old these systems are. And not only does it take time to process the transferring of people's health records, but all these people are at risk of having their entire programs shut down. And when we're dealing with as many people as we deal with today that are sick, that need attention, that need to be in the best care of hands, we cannot afford to be shut down by bad actors. And we got to do everything we can to protect people's data, protect the system, even more so, give your healthcare records back to where they should be and where they should belong. And that's with the patient. Each person should own their own healthcare records. It shouldn't be sitting in the cloud with all the other people on the archaic medical data field.
Yeah, well, and I'm going to double down on that because our listeners obviously are all in healthcare, right? I think hopefully there's a lot of hockey fans too. Blockchain, maybe not so much. Our company, Somicare GR, we're still dealing in a digital world that still
Yep.
uses faxes in 2025. But that
Yep.
you brought up, like, look, X got hit last week with a massive attack, and they've got military grade protection. That
Look,
United Health subsidiary and then impacted Change Healthcare. It impacted all the clinics, the GPOs,
yep.
impacted 190 million people. It's a third of Americans. And actually, the cost was about $3 billion. So I guess let's go to the home run question. I think the bad actors are getting better. That's a part of it. Technology is getting better. The cloud-based technology is not getting better from a protective standpoint. So if MediChainX is an example, your company using blockchain, would that have been much harder or impossible for that breach to happen?
It would be almost be impossible. Now, listen, with blockchain, the way blockchain is built, and it says chain, right? So when you say blockchain, all the information goes on a chain where each chain is its own individual link to that person or to that data piece. It's not connected to anything else. The crazy thing about cloud-based is when all the information is getting stored in a database for a company, all that data goes into a cloud and it's all amongst each other. So if a bad actor gets in and compromises that cloud, it can get all the information off of that cloud. Everything is susceptible. Whereas in a blockchain, a bad actor might be able to get into a chain, but it'll only get into that one piece of data. And there might be billions and billions of chains on that chain of data. So it's really not beneficial for a bad actor to go in and only have one person's information. So to get the part of the whole chain is virtually impossible. So when you talk about protecting your data and making sure that data is stored in a safe place, can get transferred from one place to another extremely fast and safe. You'll be able to control the payment rails from the patient to the provider, from the provider to the employee, from the insurance company to the provider. It's the amount of speed and accuracy that you can do, not to mention the size of payments that can be made on a blockchain. It is the best way and the most productive way to store and transfer data all around the world because it's borderless transfer. Wouldn't it be nice that if we all had our own medical number, blockchain number, and anywhere we go in the world and something happens and you have to go to a doctor, you have to go to a hospital, and they ask you what your medical number is, and they can pull up your entire health history right there at a speed second time. You don't have to reach back to your provider back home or call your physician back home to get your data records. You literally own them and you can transfer them all over the world, borderless. I mean, that becomes a very powerful key and instrument to have when you're talking about taking care and getting the speediest, most best care possible. And nobody can access that without permission from you. That is a very important part of the world, protecting your own information and making it easier for the hospitals to really to collect, to maneuver through, and to do a lot of the processing that happens throughout the medical world. There's too many levels and too many variables that come into the way that it's done now, where mistakes can happen. We talked about the data breaches that can happen. The blockchain will take away 95, 96% of all of those problems in a second.
Yeah, I mean, we think about those data breaches, we're talking about huge organizations, metadata as an example, and then you just actually brought it down to the patient level. And look, you're a patient, I'm a patient. I have no idea where my data is. I have no idea how to control it, where the command and control is. So you guys over there have figured out a way to have the patient have control and line of sight. So walk us through patients. How easy is it for them to use this technology to then feel very confident they can access their information and it's protected all day long.
Yeah, and I think that's the scariest thing for everybody, right? Because everything is technology. And if you're not a tech person and you don't have very good skills in maneuvering through apps and through all that kind of stuff, it can get a little bit tricky. But it simply is the front end dashboard. A lot of these companies will be able to sign up onto the blockchain. Each individual member and patient would enter into that front end, just like being in an app. And once you go into that app, you're going to have to sign up. And at that sign up, you will be given your blockchain number. And that blockchain number is then connected to all of your information once the medical field moves all that information into your personal profile. So again, it's like signing up for an app, but with a few more steps that it walks you right through. In the late 80s, early 90s, we had information sitting in cabinet drawers, right? We had to move all that information from paper information onto a computer. And then from the computer on disk drives, then we had to move to the cloud base. So technology is a scary thing, but it gets easier and better and faster as it goes. And it's a process. It wouldn't be a process that would happen overnight. It would be a gradual build from an organization, but it's going to happen. It's not going to be an if blockchain is going to be used. It's a when. And the companies that do get on board with blockchain earlier now are going to have so much more once everybody else starts going over. They're not going to even have a bleep in their day-to-day business dealings and the amount of money that they can save because of the transactions fees that happen. There's so many benefits to it. So yeah, it would be a little bit difficult. People have to learn it, but I know people who didn't know how to text and now they're sending emails and texts. And I know people that didn't know how to get onto Facebook. People adapt and they'll just have to adapt to to the best protection in data, and that's blockchain.
Well, I'm interested in this quote unquote, I'm going to use the term power play because you mentioned two things there that I think are significant. One is, look, we have the accumulated knowledge of all of mankind in the palm of our hand with a cell phone, right? And I think people are more savvy than maybe we give them credit for in healthcare for apps and utilizing remote patient monitoring and being educated by their clinics. But then there's the other side. There's the large entities. So the healthcare systems, they're still on the antiquated protection platforms. You've got the revenue cycle management companies. You have the payers, the insurers, right?
Yep.
There's a lot of inertia that can happen trying to get those big entities to change and be the tip of the sword for a company like you guys in MediChainX and utilizing blockchain. What's the power play there for you all in the strategy?
Well, it's obviously it's the accuracy of everything, right? And it's getting it out there. And in medical, it's very tricky because everything has to be HIPAA compliant. So making sure everything is HIPAA compliant through the process of building the blockchain becomes very, very important. Accuracy, speed, and making sure that the entire informational highway that happens through healthcare. We do the same thing in processing, credit card processing. There are steps to doing everything. There are steps for a patient to walk into the clinic, go get the service and where that data goes, where that information goes. You have people that are going to pharmacies to get their prescriptions, all that stuff has to be put onto the blockchain. So the size and scope is crazy, but the pay attention to detail, that's always the case for us. So we've done a tremendous amount of work, information diving and finding out everything that needs to happen for different industries because healthcare, whether you're a healthcare company, you're going to have different processes than a medical establishment, than a hospital will. So it's, like I said, it's a big lift, but it's, like I said, we're one of the top 3 blockchain builders in the world. And time's on our side. We're beating the trend right now. So we're in front of everybody.
Your tip of the sword and trailblazers are, they often go through those pains, right?
Everybody's going to be going to blockchain. There's no question about it. You're going to see more and more hacks, more and more companies that are going to be put out of business. If not put out of business, they're going to lose millions and millions of dollars while their systems are shut down. The blockchain will prevent all of that. And again, new technology always wins off of old technology. It's just like death and taxes. That's a sure thing in the world. There's no question that new technology will always outpace old technology.
Well, it's like the old 20-pound wooden coho sticks you and I used to use versus the carbon fiber, hyper lights that are out there today, right?
Exactly right. Exactly. Yeah. You don't see anybody today using good old Sherwood wood sticks anymore.
Oh, no, we should go back to that. There's something about it. But I think it's also taking notice. Like these massive attacks and breaches are making people kind of sit up higher in their chair. By the way, I had a chance to talk to your technology team. The way that they're going to be integrating their APIs to EMRs and EHRs is going to make this easier. Not going to be a massive headache, but definitely I think a change in mindset. So we want to get it out there, JR. I've got a couple Easter egg questions for you, but before we do that, for MediChainX and yourself, how can payers and companies and healthcare systems and really anybody that's interested in this new technology reach you guys? What's the contact they should be looking for?
So you can go to MediChainX. We are forever expanding our website and building our website. That's pretty much where you would go on Google and read a bunch about us. There are contact information on Google. We've worked so hard on building the blockchains and building the information that the one thing that is the last to come, which should be one of the first, is our website. But definitely go to MediChainX.
We'll do it. And we're going to get that out there in the masses. So, JR, a couple Easter egg questions. I know some of your mates, old mates might be listening to this. I don't want you to, do anything that'll get you in trouble, but who was the toughest player you ever played against? And who was the best all around hockey player that you remember playing against?
Well, the toughest, tough is there's 2 different kinds of tough. There's tough fighting, and then there's tough, just all around tough, physically tough, mentally tough, dirty tough. Mark Messier was the toughest person I had to play against. His mentality, he would hurt you, he would hit you, he would slash you, he would score goals against you. And it was just so frustrating to play against somebody like that. As far as the best, everybody talks about, Mario Lemieux, Wayne Gretzky, Messier, I throw up in there. Peter Forsberg, I throw up in there. Joe Sakic, Steve Yzerman. I played in the best generation in the history of hockey from 1988 until 2003 when Gretz and Mario retired. The amount of talent that played in the 90s is unimaginable. And I was fortunate enough to play in that time. But Mario, for me, still, if he would have stayed healthy and didn't get sick, and I think he would have broke the goals records that Ovechkin's getting ready to break. But who would have thought anybody would break Wayne Gretzky's record? But it looks like Ovi's going to do it. Maybe not this year, but soon, which is one of the most unbelievable achievements in pro sports.
Yeah, he's like 7 or 8 away. It's going to be crazy, but records are made to be broken. And you played in that great era. I'll never forget those Coyotes Red Wings playoffs games back in the 90s. Those were awesome. And I'll finish with this. My son, he's 14U. He's a Bantam playing. We play the old Sega Genesis. You mentioned EA Sports, right? He actually traded you from the Coyotes, and you are now on a line in our Sega Genesis game with Yzerman and Fedorov. So I can't.
Oh boy, look out! That's an unbeatable line. It's not so much me; it's Roenick. He's good.
Well, listen, we appreciate you being on the Road to Care podcast. Everybody out there, get in touch with MediChainX. We're going to get this out. And JR, thank you so much. And congratulations on a wonderful career and a transition to innovating healthcare for everyone out there. Thanks, JR.
Thanks, Kip. Appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you for joining the Road to Care podcast hosted by Somicare, the leader in prior authorization technology and services, where through a script to therapy operating system, We enable connectivity with clinics, payers, and manufacturers focused on optimizing patient care. Tune in next time, as together we can make things right. Enjoy the music written, produced, and recorded by Jamestown.